Hello everyone, it's Seth here, probably better known as Saffron Olive. Today we have another budget magic. This time we are heading back to Modern with a very cheap deck. We're playing Mono Red Creature Storm, which comes in at 21 bucks online and a $53 in paper. And yeah, let's talk about the list a little bit. Why is it called Creature Storm? Well, we have Burning Tree Emissary, a hybrid card, so you can pay 2 green, 2 red, or 1 green and 1 red to cast a 2/2, but when it enters the battlefield, you add a red and a green to your mana pool. So basically, it costs 2 mana, but it's actually free because the mana replaces itself. We also have Priest of Urabrask, which is 2 and a red. For a 2/1, when it enters the battlefield, you add 3 red to your mana pool. So we have 8 creatures, which are basically free, so we get to play these to add to our storm count. Then we have some actual rituals. We have 4 desperate rituals. Basically, you pay 1 and a red, and you add 3 red to your mana pool. We have 4 pyretic rituals. 1 and a red, add 3 mana to your mana pool. And we have 4 Manamorphose, another hybrid card, a red or a green. We're always paying red in our deck, obviously, since it's mono red. You cast it, you add 2 mana of any color to your mana pool, so it's mana neutral, and you draw a card. We also have 4 Gitaxian Probes, which, yes, I know the card looks blue, but you can cast it for 2 life because it has that Phyrexian mana symbol up at the top. So in this deck, we're always casting it for 2 life. We get to take a peek at our opponent's hand and then draw a card. So we are using those cards to build up our storm count, rituals, creatures, and Manamorphose. And then we are trying to win by casting Storm Entity, which is another creature. Another reason it's Creature Storm. Storm Entity is a pretty neat card. It is sort of like a grape shot that only goes at your opponent's face. 1 in a red for a 1/1 with haste. But when it enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 counter for each spell played before it this turn. So if you cast some Burning Tree Emissaries and some Priests and some Rituals and some Probes, I think the biggest I've had it come in is as a 8/8 or a 9/9. So you can definitely pump it up pretty huge. And remember, that's not until end of the turn. Those are actual counters that stay on the creature. So that's one way we get played off for paying all these spells in one turn. Another way is Empty the Warrens. It is the best card in our deck. It is the card that we want to draw almost every single match, but because we only have 2 of them, we hardly ever actually draw it. The reason Empty is so powerful, and in case you are not familiar, you pay 3 in a red and put 2 1/1 red goblins into play, but Empty has Storm, so you get to copy that spell for every spell that you've played before at this turn. So just like the Storm Entity, if you play a bunch of rituals, a bunch of Burning Tree Emissaries, you can make 8, 10, 15, not 15, 16 or 20 goblins. You can make a lot of goblins with Empty the Warrens. And then the sweet thing about this deck, unlike some other Storm decks that do play Empty, sometimes out of the sideboard, sometimes main deck, is we get Goblin Bushwhacker, the little goblin that could. Goblin Bushwhacker is a 1/1 for 1 red, but it has Kicker, so if you pay 2 red instead of 1, it enters the battlefield with haste, and it gives all your creatures +1/+0 in haste until end of turn. So if you can put off a big empty and then play a Goblin Bushwhacker, you can win on the spot from your opponent having their full life total. The last card in our deck, Lightning Bolt. I'm sure you know what Lightning Bolt is. It is everywhere in Modern. Oh yeah, speaking of changes to the deck, Mir Superion. This card is definitely coming out. It has been utterly horrible. The idea is, since we have these creatures that add mana, the Burning Tree Emissaries, the Priests, that we can play Mir Superion as a 5/6 on turn 2, because it has this drawback. It is huge, it comes down on turn 2, but you can only spend mana produced by creatures to cast it. So since we have these creatures that make mana, in theory we can just like cast this Mir on turn 2 and win the game. The problem is twofold. For one thing, you don't actually draw a creature that produces mana and a Mir Superion in your opening hand or in your first 10 cards all that often. That's just unfortunately the math of the matter. So it only happens rarely. And apart from Mir Superion, we don't have a ton of good removal targets, like Path to Exile against Burning Tree Emissary, Empty the Warrens, Abrupt Decay against those cards just isn't good. But so Mir Superior basically comes down on turn 2, and then it dies, and we get nothing for it. Anyway, lands 20 mountains, as simple as it can be. Sideboard. This sideboard is horrible. The deck that I built this off of didn't have a sideboard at all, and it's really hard to sideboard with this deck because when you're playing Storm, you need most of your deck basically. There's not many flex slots that you can take out. So usually like lightning bolts sometimes can come out, Mir Superions can come out, but there's not a whole lot of room to switch things up. So right now we have 4 ricochet traps. Grape shots, never brought them in. They probably don't need to be here. Wear and tear. This could be any red artifact removal spell. I just happen to have these in my collection. Shatterstorm, also not sure if that needs to be here. It's a way to maybe get a free win against Affinity. And Electrickery. Electrickery is just very good in this format. A lot of decks are playing Lingering Souls. Grixis Delver is very popular. And Electrickery kills Delver, kills Snapcaster, kills Lingering Souls, kills Dark Confidant if that's a thing. There's a lot of creatures. It kills Young Pyromancer and all the tokens it generates. So, and it does it for a very cheap price. So I really like Electricity, not just in this deck, but in Modern in general at the moment. It seems like a very strong sideboard card. Anyway, if you have some suggestions about the sideboard for this deck, make sure to let me know. So anyway, this is the list that we play in the videos. Like I said, $21 online, $53 in paper. If you want to see the changes I've made to the list, make sure to check out the article on the website. And yeah, enjoy the videos.